Yeah.
Good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. 6:30, I'm going to call the Joshua City Council to order, 101 South Main, Joshua, Texas. This is an open meeting subject to the open meeting laws of the state of Texas. We do have an option. If you're online, you can, there's a little spot you can hit on your computer and it will tell the city secretary that you'd like to ask a question or speak to one of the agendas or under our public forum. If anybody in the audience is wanting to speak under the public forum section or on any of the agenda items, we have some forms over here to fill out. So if you'd fill that out and give it to our city secretary, well, then we'll make sure you get called. We do have a quorum present, and at this time, I'm going to ask Robert Fleming to lead us in our pledge, followed by the invocation from Scott Kimball. So if everybody will stand and remain standing for the prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you. We thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us as individuals. Father, as citizens of this wonderful city, Lord, we just thank you for all the freedoms that we have, and we ask that you continue to help us protect those freedoms. Lord, as we meet tonight, we ask that you give us wisdom, that you guide us, that every word that's spoken here is spoken out of truth, Lord, and with understanding by all. And Lord, we just thank you again for your Son, Jesus Christ, that came to save us all. And we thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Mayor, I just heard from Councilmember Q. He'll be here about 15 minutes.
Who? Mike?
Q.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start with the work session, review and discuss questions related to the budget report and financial statement for December 2021. Anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
No. All right. Next item is to discuss, consider, and give direction regarding filing a grant submission application through the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program to purchase a prefabricated training structure and associated items needed for installation. Chief Griffin.
Mayor, Council, this is going to be for the purchase of a training simulator from Wildfire. It would also allow us to do other exercises that skills that we need for structural firefighting, roof ventilation, SPA may, or firefighting, fire conditions, and a few other things go along with that. And actually, before I start, I changed that. I'm proposing that this be a Class A fuel simulator. Class A fuels are natural products like wood, paper, hay, that sort of thing. By doing so, in eliminating the LPG feature, we will save $80,000 in grant request. Which will also help us in that request. Cost benefit there, not going out for the all the bells and whistles to get the switch you need. We'll also eliminate some of the out-of-pocket expenses we would have had, such as the LPG container. We won't have to have that. We'll have to have plumbing done for it as well. I'd like to keep the electrical in there because we might want to string some lights on the outside around the structure. The structure's 40 feet long, 17 feet wide, about 17 feet high, not including a little rappelling tower that is built on top of that. So it's essentially not much taller or about the same height as a two-story home. I think that we need this because the closest training facility that we have is similar to this, and which actually is not, would be quite to this standard, is in the ESD over in Cleveland, and it's about 9 miles from here, so we have to be district to get there, which means that we're basically unprotected during this time. Get all our people together, and we usually only are able to burn maybe once a year, maybe twice. This facility, the simulator, would allow us to use it anytime we need it. We can sit with smaller groups of people. We have Wednesday night trainings. We can use this every Wednesday night. We'd be performing some sort of an exercise in different disciplines of structural firefighting. I think it's going to be a great benefit to us. It will help us to reach a higher level of training and knowledge and skills that will help us to better protect our community. Hope that answers your question.
Where would this be located at?
Directly behind the fire station, somewhat in the middle. I think you have, I believe in your package, you have a diagram that shows where that's at.
Now, what's that going to do when you're doing the fires? Is that going to be something that's going to be visible to everybody in town and will be wondering what's going on, or?
It might be, but it will be minimal. We would probably burn old pallets and maybe a couple or so at a time. So it probably would put out about the same amount of smoke as maybe 3 or 4 fireplaces would. We would do that on days when it's not windy, so we wouldn't blow it all across the neighborhood. It would generally just rise straight up. But I don't foresee it as being anything that would cause a problem for anyone, but we would set some criteria for how we use it when we burn. But it does so much more than just live burns. I mean, there's props built into it for propelling, ventilation. I mentioned the SCBA maze. There's forcible entry, we can practice on it. Standpipe training, sprinkler training, several other things on that list.
Would this be something that maybe other departments could use? We could rent out or something if somebody had the need that they were wanting to run a class through there or something?
Well, my intention is to share it with our mutual aid partners. So Rose, Cleburne, any other smaller departments that don't have access to
Right.
those sorts of things. As far as renting, I hadn't considered that. The grant to kind of push you up in the grading score there, they want to see if you're going to share this.
Right. Okay.
I don't think it would look too good if I didn't know we're going to rent it.
Yeah.
But so I hadn't planned on that.
And what's the total cost, and then what's our cost going to be?
The cost of the simulator is $310,000, and that's delivered and installed and training provided on how to use it. The only other put out would be from us would be the concrete piers that need to go on each corner of the structure, wherever there's a corner to a cargo container. So there's 2 on the lower floor that put together, 4 in those corners, and then 1 in the middle on each side, because that's technically a corner. And then and then if we do electrical, run electrical line, I got a quote on that, but even that may be even lower because I've spoken to our public works director and say that we might be able to do some of the preliminary work, excavation for the line ourselves and save considerable amount of money that way. So essentially, I got a quote for concrete work, which is about $3,600, and then whatever the electrical cost would be.
So the grant, we don't have to pay anything to.
A 5% match, which would amount to $14,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else got any questions?
Yeah, the LPG part of it, how would that enhance the training? I understand, all primaries dealing with the wood structures and stuff like that, but would the LPG actually be a helpful thing?
Not really, and that's why I'm proposing eliminating that.
Okay.
That cost, that would
Okay. The only real concern that I had looking at it was being in the middle of a neighborhood. The smoke coming out of it, so on and so forth. Would there be a way that the fire department would be able to notify the neighbors, hey, we're going to do this on such and such Wednesday night, weather permitting, so on and so forth?
Absolutely.
I think that would be really good so that, hey, it smells like a house is burning down next to us and we start getting these phone calls.
I did notice in looking at these structures, there was a video that I looked at that the Rowlett Fire Department has one of these much taller. The same amount of distance that we are from our residential, they have it from a large multi-unit apartment complex. So they're right behind that. I've seen a video of one of these, just like the one we're proposing to get, actually in use, burning. And the amount of smoke that was coming out of it was really surprisingly, small, that I thought. And I thought it would be a lot more. It tends to confine a lot of the smoke because it's sealed up. It's not venting.
Yeah.
during that time. So when you're going in and doing your exercise and you apply water to the fire, you're basically going to dampen it down a lot. So it's not really going to burn much anymore. By the time you open it up, you're not going to get a whole lot of residual smoke out of it.
Okay. The only other question that I had, I see that it's a very short time for you to get everything together to send to them, everything. Is this just something that came up, or is it something that somebody brought to your attention out of the
They
blue?
give you a 30-day window, and they say the grant's open to you got to submit it. So, yeah.
Okay.
I've basically written everything, got everything together, and I'm ready to submit it tomorrow. I just need the council's consensus.
Well, I know we've been talking for a long time about having a good professional fire department in the city. We've got our paid firefighters now. I think a training facility like this would be an enhancement to that. I think it'd be a good addition.
I think any opportunity you have to get something on a grant that's for training is a good opportunity. Training is paramount, so.
Did anybody else have any questions? All right, well, I think everybody pretty okay with letting him proceed on this and turning in the
What
grant.
about Miss Angela?
What?
What about Angela?
Angela, did you have any questions or anything? That's all right. Don't talk. Shake your head if you don't want it. Go up and down if you do.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was on mute.
That's all right.
I said I absolutely agree that it is a much needed training facility for the fire department if we want to have a professional fire department. So I'm all for it.
Right, good. Thank you. We'll try not to make you talk too much. All right, well, I think we've got it.
Question. I couldn't hear him, all of it. The grant's paying for everything but 5%, is that what I heard you say?
5% of the 310, which is 14,760, and then we will have a little out-of-pocket additional for concrete work of about $3,600, and then some electrical costs. I had 5,000 listed there, but it'll be less than that.
So you're training in Cleburne right now, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have to schedule that in,
Yes,
right?
sir.
You have to get, other people are training out there too. This gives you the opportunity to train when you want to.
Absolutely.
And if they show up at my residence, I want somebody there trained,
Amen.
knows what they're doing, and I agree with it.
More opportunity to train. So
Exactly.
That's what's really important. We'll have the opportunity to do this continually, daily or weekly or even daily if we need to.
All right, Mike, you've got a consensus, so turn it in and we'll cross our fingers.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, anybody have any questions regarding any of the regular session agenda items? All right, now we'll go into the public forum. Did we have anybody that was wanting to speak under public forum, Alice?
Yes, sir.
Next is the consent agenda, which consists of considering the approval of the minutes from the city council meeting held on December 16, 2021, to discuss, consider, and take possible action on the ordinance ordering a general election to be held on Saturday, May 7th, 2022 for the positions of mayor, city council place 1 and city council place 3, and consider approval of a joint election agreement between the city of Joshua and the Joshua ISD authorizing the May 7th, 22 election to be held in the same location. Does anybody want to split these out, or can we approve them all at one time?
I make the motion, we'll approve everything at one time.
I'll second his motion.
All right. Then I'll consider that the motion and a second. That was the motion by Scott, seconded by Merle, or vice versa.
Doesn't matter.
Anybody have any questions? All those in favor? Okay, the consent agenda passed 7-0. All right, next, the regular agenda, and I'm going to open up a public hearing at 6:45 on a zoning change request regarding 36.283 acres of land known as tracks 1A and 1A2 in the T.W. Baird survey, abstract number 40, County of Johnson County, Texas, located at 1301 South Broadway Street, to change from C1 Restricted Commercial District to R1 Single Family Residential District to allow for the construction of 2 residential homes. Aaron?
Mayor, pardon me, Aaron, just a point. We can't take a vote from Angela not being present anymore.
Okay.
So obviously fine for her to nod her head and all that stuff, but the vote has to be in person now. So
Okay,
just so you know.
thank you. Was not aware. Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
Mayor, council.
We're gonna change that to 6.
Has been vacant, but the floodplain issues, gas well pad site and various easements that prevent much of the property from being developed. This property is currently zoned for restricted commercial district. The proposed development of this property is to allow for the property to be platted as 2 lots for the construction of a residential home on each lot. This development will be required. The final plat, the city has agreed that these matters may be part of the planning review process. The proposed request complies with the future land use plan. On January 3rd, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation to the city council for approval.
All right, thank you. Is the owner present? Want to make any statement? Would you like to say anything? All right, no problem. Did anybody submit anything in favor, Aaron?
No, sir.
Anybody against?
No.
All right, now I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:47. And now we will take action on approving the ordinance for the zoning change requested from commercial C1 to residential R1. Does anybody have any questions?
I move we approve.
Let it see if anybody has any questions.
I got a question for the young man. You know what we talked about today? Nope, can't do it. Never mind. Disregard.
All right, anybody else have any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve.
Okay, the motion by Scott. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
No,
Let's hear it. All right, got a motion by Scott Kimball, seconded by Merle and Robert. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0.
Mr.
All approved.
Rattenstein, my apologies. We got the answer to that question earlier. I did convey it to the mayor, but I did not call you,
Okay,
so
that's
my
fine.
apologies.
That's great.
And when we're done, I'll fill you.
Okay, not a problem.
All right, next is to discuss and consider and take possible action on an ordinance by the city council of the city of Joshua, Texas, authorizing the issuance of a city of Joshua, Texas tax note series 2022, levying an annual ad valorem tax within the limitations prescribed by law for the payment of the obligations, prescribing the form, terms, conditions, and resolving other matters incident and related to the issuance, sale, and delivery of the obligations, authorizing the execution of a payment agent/registrar agreement and a purchase and investment letter complying with the letter of representation previously executed with the depository trust companies, authorizing the execution of any necessary engagement agreement with the city's financial advisors and our bond counsel, providing the effective dates. Mike?
We have Mr. Cantu, who is the bond attorney that represents us, who's been working on this, who has got some information to share for you. The thing I'm going to make sure that we are clear on is this note that covers these 2 pieces of equipment will not increase the INS tax rate, so it will have no effect on the current budget or future that rate will stay
You
the
must
same.
remember what the 2 pieces of equipment are too.
This bond is a
Tax
$820,000.
note.
It's a tax note, I'm sorry. It is for the purchase of the fire truck, the tanker that is on order. It's got about a year delivery date, I think, maybe 11 months now, but that's close. And then the other is the tractor with the flail mower attachment for public works that will do along the side mowing and ditch mowing and all that good stuff. So that is on order also. Neither have been received or we'll have this well before that's done, but those are the 2 pieces. It's a 7-year term, and those pieces of equipment will far exceed that 7 years.
We already have this in the budget.
It is in the budget.
So there's no tax increase. We're not talking about that. It's just a matter of something we already got.
We're not changing the taxes. We're not amending the budget. And This does have a repay because we have paid, we got a discount to prepay for the fire truck, which we did. So once these funds are received, that will automatically reimburse the reserves for that truck, and then the rest will wait on it till the tractor arrives. Mr. Cantu is going to go through the 5 bids that we received. Better explain stuff, and he's on the line there, so.
Mr. Cantu, welcome.
Mayor, members of the city council, just to check, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Well, my name is Arnold Cantu. I'm a bond attorney at the law firm of Locke Lord. I have the honor of representing you on the past refunding and this current tax note issuance. Typically, the bond lawyer sort of works behind the scenes, but I will apologize in advance because the agenda item is one thing that I do take care of, and I tend to be wordy there. But I'm filling in for Andrew Friedman of Samco Capital Markets, who has prepared a presentation that I'd like to go over fairly quickly. And if you have any questions after the presentation, I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Okay.
All right. So Samco Capital Markets, your financial advisor, took bids in the private market for these tax notes. And as you can see here, a comparison of the interest rates, you'll see that Presidio short-term tax exempt fund came in with a bid of $865,000 at an interest rate at about 1.510, a true interest cost of 1.59. It's my understanding that this is under what was originally projected. So we've come in better than I believe, the anticipated 2% interest rate, and at favorable interest rates compared to a lease purchase obligation. And you'll notice that the bids were for $865,000. The notes, as Mr. Peacock mentioned, are being used to finance capital equipment for a term of 7 years, including the fire truck and tractor mower. The notes will be a 7-year term, which is below the useful life of the assets that are being financed. And as Mr. Peacock mentioned, this will not increase the city's debt service tax rate, and it maintains the city's capacity to issue further financings for capital equipment or infrastructure in the future. Now, it will be a total of $820,000 into your project fund. The bids we took were at $865,000. We've lowered the costs of the financing such that the total amount of the debt would be $860,000. And that's going to be about $5,000 from what the original financing plan had called for. So all in all, again, this is a big win, in my opinion, for the city. A 7-year term at very favorable interest rates in this market, considering that interest rates have been ticking up in the recent past. What comes next after today's meeting, we had bids received. I finalized documents on my end, the legal side. I'll be sending those to the Attorney General for review and approval, and making sure that everything is in line so that we can close and have funds delivered to the city's bank account on February 8th. And that was a presentation by Samco Capital Markets. I'm not exactly sure how to unshare my screen, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
How does a tax note differ from like a bond? What's the difference?
Certainly. Well, there's a few key structural differences, right? You have your, you could say you have 2 tax rates, your maintenance and operations and your INS debt service. Tax notes are a very special carve out in the state legislation that allows you to take on short-term, low-cost financings without the need of a bond election, given a few other requirements. They need to be done for either emergency use authorizations or capital equipment such as these projects. The maximum term for a tax note is 7 years. And so that's why we've structured this financing as a 7-year term. Bond elections, what you usually see as bonds, those generally require a bond election because they can go out for up to 40 years. And the purposes for a bond election are a little bit more broad in what you can do. In this case, because the legislature recognized that there's, sometimes it's better to use a scalpel than a hatchet. Short-term financings for capital equipment are available to you if we meet certain requirements, which my job is to make sure that we meet those requirements, and we're on the right track so far.
So it'd be similar to going to a car dealership and getting a loan to buy a car.
Exactly. You could see it as in many ways, I liken them to mortgages in my opinion. It's you're buying something like a car or a house, you're financing it. What the notes are in a legal sense, it's basically your mortgage papers. It's an IOU. You're issuing these notes, which are essentially physical pieces of paper that says we promise to pay you on each year this principal amount plus this amount of interest, which in this case averages out to about a little less than 1.510 interest. That is basically just a note is just the legal evidence that the city owes, in this case, Presidio short-term, X amount of dollars plus X amount of interest each year for the next 7 years. In return, you have your bank account funded with enough funds to purchase the capital equipment that you need.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have anything? Oh, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the presentation. At this point in time, I'll entertain the motion then.
Well, I've got a couple more
Oh, yes.
questions
Okay.
that didn't pertain to him.
Okay.
Okay. Year and a half, 2 years ago, we started, or actually 3 years ago, we started our capital improvements plan. And we've been budgeting money every year. I thought we were budgeting that money and setting it aside for purchases like this, so we wouldn't have to take on additional debt to purchase these things. Is that not what capital improvements?
Well, sort of yes and no. We have been setting it aside, and that's why I asked Mike. This is in the budget, so that capital improvement set aside is actually going to pay this deal. We just did it over the 7 years, which made a little bit more sense versus just paying it all out, waiting 7 years before we got it and then trying to order the fire truck.
Okay, so because we don't have enough money in the capital improvements account right now, we have to borrow the money to purchase
Right,
it.
but with
that we need.
the amount we've got budgeted for capital improvements will help go to make this payment every year.
Well, and part of the issue too, Scott, is a lot of that stuff, things that have a lifespan well outside of the finance term. Sometimes it's easier to do it that way so that it frees up for, we wouldn't do these for police cars and that are lower expensive. When you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes it's easier to do this. And then we still have the asset. We just budget those payments in the capital fund to make it, which is what we did in this case.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I understand how the capital improvements works versus,
If
the
we're
city
gonna buy
going
an
into additional
asset
debt.
if it's an asset that's going to exceed $150,000 or so, typically we will look at this to compare where the benefit is. And depending on what else, if we didn't have anything else to purchase, it may be y'all's choice to pay the $150,000 up front. But since we had so many other things listed in there, we did it this way.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
Yep. All right. Anybody else have anything? All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion then.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay, got a motion by Mike Kidd, seconded by Rick DePriest. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Next is to discuss, consider, and take possible action regarding a request to authorize the painting of the business name on the front of the building located at 107 North Main. Aaron?
Mayor and council, all signage for the building uses or change in use shall comply with the requirements at the time of sign permit. This signage permit falls under letter M. All murals shall be considered on a case-by-case basis and approved by the Heritage Preservation Committee or the city council as an element of a site plan application.
What this is, he's wanting to pay, it's for the Brick Oven Pizza Grill, and they're just wanting to do the same thing Hickory Tree's done. They're gonna paint the bricks and put their sign up, and I think there was a sample in the packet. Anybody have any questions?
Everything falls within the heritage overlay restrictions and rules of how they want to do it and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
It's gonna be exactly like the sign up there now. It's just gonna be painted.
Yeah, exactly.
Looks good.
All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
Make a motion to approve.
I got Robert. I'll say the second by Rick DePriest. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Staff reports. Does anybody have any questions on the staff reports?
I do have a question for Chief here. So when I'm looking through here, on the very first part of yours, it says that including felony level offenses have shown an increase of 74% from mid-July. You think that in the past, before you were the chief, there was a different way that they were reporting or not reporting?
Those are arrests that were made by officers. And I'm not particular for this, I'm not here to keep action with my predecessor.
No.
There's just a difference in atmosphere and culture change for the police department. We are fully staffed, more than one before.
Right.
The additional swords detectives, we have the capabilities to go out and investigate more offenses and effectively arrest offenses. And so you're seeing that increase based on the increase in our staff, the increase in our overall activity as indicated in those stats, and our ability to investigate offenses and make arrests.
Okay. That's all I have.
And I want to commend it and tell the other officers. I mean, it's really nice to go on Facebook and see everybody's appreciative of what y'all are doing, getting out there in the enforcement. I can't believe how many felons it seems like we've taken off the streets here just because we're making stops and checking on everybody. And I think it makes everybody feel a lot safer. So if you pass that word along, tell them we really appreciate what they're doing.
Thank you very much.
I'd also like to make sure that we commend our officers for the investigation of the murder. That was awesome that within 48 hours, you had the suspect and everything in line to just hand over to the Burleson police.
With again, it goes back to being able to put some more detectives in place, having black people in place. In addition to Captain Peters, we were able to go out and effectively solve that offense and then give it handed to the city of Burleson.
And to do it on Christmas. That's what just is amazing to me, how much we've changed our policing.
We did.
The last year.
I believe Mike got a call from the Burleson Police Department thanking us and what an excellent job our police department did in handling that. They were very appreciative.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are doing a great job.
Good stuff.
Any other questions?
Chief Griffith, you said you're going to make changes to your report starting this month. What you put to include things a little bit better and explain things. I'm looking forward to that. Just seeing again the overall improvement, this constant improvement of how things are working. You guys have just done a fantastic job there too. I understand you're getting ready to start a good push on your recruiting. Is there anything that you can think of that needs to be considered by the council that might increase your chances in recruiting?
Not at the moment, but if I do come up with something, I'll certainly relay that through Mr. Peacock. But we're gonna push into the Joshua and Burleson high schools. Got to arrange meetings with those principals and set up. We're gonna put up a nice little display table, and cover the backdrop. Get a couple of, well-groomed, professional firefighters going and press the flesh and hand out flyers and try to figure. I have another idea also, and I have to discuss this with the superintendent about possibly incorporating community service. If they have a requirement for community service in the curriculum, that becoming a volunteer firefighter might apply the credit towards that in some way.
You good?
I haven't spoken to anyone about that.
Well, good luck on this grant. Having that extra training, I'm sure will attract some more people.
I'm hoping so.
I'm betting it will.
I do have a quick question for the chief too.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I did notice that there was a advertisement, I guess, for a paid position here. Did we lose one of our other paid firefighters or?
Yes, Trent Garrigan is leaving
Okay,
to go to Mineral Wells.
got it. Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I have a number that I want to, that I have that Scott talking about the stats. I wanted to make sure y'all were aware that we're on track to receive an additional almost $17,000 this year from the ESD because the missed call volume has been zero. So that money that pays for that is about $1,400 a month. And we've received that every month since the changes were made and the paid staff we put in place. So that's an additional $16,000 that is not budgeted that we'll see coming in through the ESD.
That is great.
Anybody else have anything? All right, then we're going to adjourn into executive session at 7:08. The city of Joshua will recess into executive session, a closed meeting pursuant to the provisions of chapter 551, subchapter D, Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Pursuant to paragraph 551.071, consultation with the city attorney regarding legal issues associated with agreements pursuant to chapter 43 of the Texas Local Government Code and all matters incident and related thereto. And also in accordance with Texas Government Code section 551.074 to deliberate regarding the appointment, employment, and evaluation of a public officer or employee, to wit, municipal judge. All right. You ready? Okay, we're adjourning from executive session at 8:59. We're adjourning the meeting at 8:59.